This lecture is part 2 of the Triumph of the International Style. In the decades immediately following World War II, the United States witnessed an economic expansion. It was situated to experience an era of welcome prosperity. The 50s and 60s would prove to be a boom time for American industries as well as for the graphic designers who served them. After the war, the United States would become second only to Switzerland as a site for the exploration of geometric styles. In the period before the international style took over, Alvin Lustig was among the most talented American designers. He actually was not a practitioner of the international style, but his innovative designs are important in tracing the gradual shift in the U.S. from realistic illustration to abstraction. He was hired by Will Burton, art director of Fortune magazine, to produce a cover of the magazine. On top of the color field, Lustig placed a number of 2- and 3-dimensional elements, ranging from a completely flat, hand-drawn curlicue, so you can see this little curlicue here, up here, to the photo of a pincushion that seems to project aggressively into the viewer's space. A line leading from this latter object enters an area of negative color, almost like an X-ray, before meandering off the page. His cover exemplifies the Americanization of European abstract styles. His book jacket for Anatomy for Interior Designers has a firm orthogonal design underlying it. The right angles of the body parts are reinforced by lines of hyphens which appear to perform some measuring function, which are right here, these lines of hyphens. This clear structure and asymmetrical cropped layout are overlaid with flat organic shapes that contest the state of the geometric frame. Alvin Lustig loved the flowing line created by shapes such as these, and he integrated them into much of his work. And you can even see sort of the scripty typeface that he uses here as well. Saul Bass was another influential designer at the time when abstract modern styles were first coming into the American mainstream. He set up his own independent design practice in LA and was hired by the movie director Otto Preminger to create film posters. So he completed his poster for The Man with the Golden Arm, which was Preminger's newest picture, which dealt with the gritty urban theme of drug addiction. Saul Bass's poster was composed of flat rectangular planes of bold color. The most striking element in this poster is the man's jagged arm, which dangles in the center of the image, which is a symbol of the protagonist's heroin addiction. And you can see here what I love about this is it almost looks a little bit Dada, like the collage according to chance with those whipped bits of paper. I like that he didn't just create straight edges for his designs. His greatest gift was the ability to create a single strong motif that would stick in the viewer's mind and really served as a summarization of a whole complex of ideas and feelings. Because he loved the jagged arm symbol so much, Preminger hired Bass to design the titles for the film using the same motif. So Saul Bass's jagged arm was so successful at summarizing the themes of drug addiction and degradation that Preminger considered them to be an essential element of the film. Another example of Bass's use of the human arm was created as a powerful symbol in Preminger's film Exodus. Here, Bass shows an arm rising up from the flames at the bottom of the image. The image suggests the theme of struggle, destruction, and heroism. And by introducing this high aesthetic standard and signing his posters, Bass changed the common practices in Hollywood as the effect of good design on a film's success became apparent. In this movie, actually, tells the story of the struggle to found the State of Israel in the years after the Holocaust. The international style took hold in the U.S. in the late 1950s and was made possible by a group of corporate patrons who were convinced that it provided a politically neutral style that appeared both efficient and professional. Previous realistic illustrations, which had been the foundation of the advertising industry, really began to look obsolete. So the international style became the style of choice for corporations who wanted to promote their products universally. And this period also witnessed the golden age of the corporate logo, when designers created some of the most familiar trademarks of the century. So long before the international style took hold, the original visionary behind the corporate identity movement was Walter Paepcke, who was the owner of the Container Corporation of America. He realized that the CCA, who really just made cardboard boxes on an industrial scale, could benefit from a redesign. So he hired Egbert Jacobson to design a new look for the company. And this is his logo design, and it was a modernist solution for the CCA, placing the company's initials as a sans serif typeface inside an elongated hexagon. Walter Paepcke's embrace of an overall corporate identity program really established a precedent that was widely incorporated by the 1960s. Walter Paepcke also made a daring move when he initiated the Great Ideas advertising campaign. And what this was between 1936 and 1960, his company commissioned progressive European and American artists and designers to create posters that related to famous quotes from the Western tradition. So this really brought about the CCA and Walter Paepcke as a patron of culture. The Great Ideas campaign anticipated the universal soft marketing schemes of contemporary corporations. So this is the Swiss designer Joseph Müller-Brockmann, who you learned about in the part 1 of this chapter, and he was one of many designers who created a poster for the Great Ideas campaign. And like all the commissioned artists, he was given a quote, which I know is very, very hard to read, and was asked to base his image on it without dramatically referencing the CCA. So this wasn't just to promote the CCA, this was really to promote good design and art. Müller-Brockmann used the style-influenced blocks of color and orthogonal grid because it represented resistance to tyranny and the importance of individual expression. And the quote that you can't really read very well on the slide was from John Stuart Mill, advocating freedom of speech for individuals. Paul Rand is the designer whose name is synonymous with corporate identity and the international style. Rand was the art director of Esquire magazine in 1935 and served as a guest artist for 3 issues of PM magazine, which you learned about in a previous lecture, between 1938 and 1941. He actually trained at Pratt Institute in New York City, and even though he wasn't technically formally trained in modern graphic design, he took a class with Dada artist and German emigre George Gross and scoured the pages of European journals for information about the newest styles. The February-March 1941 issue of PM magazine featured a prominent article on Paul Rand written by Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. In the piece, Nagy wrote that he and other young Europeans had envisioned the U.S. as a technological utopia and an icon of the modern world. It had 10 pages illustrating Rand's designs for everything from furniture to posters. Paul Rand actually designed the spreads himself and de-emphasized himself in favor of the celebrity Moholy-Nagy, who had founded the new Bauhaus in Chicago in 1937. So these are some pages from the magazine designed by Paul Rand, but remember the article was written by Moholy-Nagy. The blank space at the top of the page is broken only on the right margin, where a cropped photo of a few fingers points at the title and text below. You can see that right here. The large space after the colon in the title, as well as the ragged word "the," which breaks up the block of otherwise justified text, both seem out of sync, as if Rand were experimenting with the international style without fully converting to it. During the post-war era in the U.S., even the revolutionary art of the Dadaists started to become domesticated. Its political message sort of deflated in favor of a new concern with formal fine art characteristics. So this is a cover that Paul Rand designed for Robert Motherswell's anthology, The Dada Painters and Poets, which is really just made up of typography. The overall simplicity and respect for the grid really go against everything anarchic and chaotic that the Dada movement stood for. But he created a look that perfectly sums up the new safe Dada, more about bouncy fun than revolutionary politics. In 1959, Rand embarked on a freelance career and established himself as the top vendor of corporate identity in the United States. He really started to focus on corporate logos, and this happened when he was employed by Elliott Noyes to work as a consultant for the International Business Machines, otherwise known as IBM. In designing the logo for IBM, Rand used only typography and relied on the existing acronym, which was then rendered in a condensed beaten bold that had a slight Art Deco flair. He based the new type on the 19th century Egyptian letters, which featured very heavy slab serifs. Shortly afterward, he reconfigured his original logo, adding an outline version in 2 weights, and then added the 8-bar and 13-bar versions, which split the type into horizontal bands of even weights, which you can see here. His work at IBM led to several high-profile commissions, including those for Westinghouse, the American Broadcasting Corporation, and United Parcel Service, otherwise known as UPS. So this is his original logo for Westinghouse, which featured the letter W made up of 3 dots and 4 lines that formed a letter with the suggestion of the format of an electrical circuit board. Throughout his identity work, the simplified clarity, sans serif lettering, and bold geometric shapes of the international style were very apparent. He even went so far as to design the packaging for Westinghouse lamp division, taking an addition by subtraction approach and eliminating a lot of unnecessary graphics. So you can see here, you just see the logo and the name of the light bulb and its wattage. He used a new sans serif simply called Westinghouse Gothic to fashion numbers that for the first time told the consumer the wattage of the bulbs. An orange and Westinghouse electric blue juxtaposition of complementary colors added a slightly decorative element to the design. He even designed the ABC logo and really refashioned a combination of Renner's Futura and Herbert Bayer's Universal into a new Gothic. And you can see these letter forms really are just made up of circles and rectangles. He used all lowercase letters to make an acronym that is enclosed, like many similar Bauhaus designs, by a perfect circle. ABC had been forced, like many media companies, to refine its visual identity after the success on the in-house work done by William Golden at CBS. William Golden had invented CBS's eye logo, which quickly established itself as an emblem that resonated with the eye of the television camera. His redesign of the UPS logo in 1961 paired bold sans serif lettering with a holdover device from the old logo, which was a shield. Above the shield, he added a touch of whimsy, which was a rendering of a wrapped gift. As you know, the UPS logo has been redesigned, and personally, I think this one is so much better. A key aspect of corporate logos is their proposed longevity versus more short-lived graphic design, such as magazine and poster design. This was a very important factor in the adoption of avant-garde modernism by post-war graphic designers. The quote-unquote universal nature of simple geometric designs made them highly adaptable and also able to function over several decades without looking dated. So just as a magazine design might feel dated in 2, 5, 10 years, corporate identity logos were meant to stand the test of time. And this is the new logo for UPS, which was updated in 2003. The 21st century logo got rid of the gift-wrapped box while maintaining the look of the shield. The logo has been criticized for combining 3 cliches of contemporary corporate identity. And I know if we were in class, I would ask you guys this in class. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to try to guess which ones. Hopefully you said the faux 3D created by shading, the swoosh, so this terrible swoosh that a lot of logos seem to have today, which has really become commonplace since the invention of the Nike swoosh, and also this redrawn, this typeface is called DAX, FF DAX, which is a stylized version. So just not I don't know. I don't think this is very nice. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I definitely prefer the simplicity of this original UPS logo. One of the most important graphic design programs in the U.S. had been established at Yale University and still exists today. Its art department was chaired by Bauhaus professor and German emigre Joseph Albers. I mean, can you imagine being taught by a Bauhaus professor? That would be pretty amazing. He played an important role in making Yale into an institution where the international style would thrive in the fine arts, including architecture as well as in the design areas. And he was really an influential proponent of the Bauhaus approach to problem solving. Paul Rand was also a professor of graphic design at Yale, where he taught from 1956 to 1993. While he was mainly self-taught, he did play an important role in instituting the study of the international style that dominated the graphic design curriculum at Yale for many years. Paul Rand redesigned the logo for Yale University Press in 1985. And just as a note of reference, other Yale professors in the 50s and 60s included Alvin Lustig, Herbert Mader, Alexei Brodovich, and Armin Hoffman. Unimark International, the design firm founded in 1965 by Massimo Vignelli, Bob Norda, Ralph Eckerstrom, who was a former director at the Container Corporation of America, and 4 others, had a profound impact on corporate identity and branding in the U.S. They were advocates of the rational, universal principles of the international style, and really approached their profession in the manner of artist as engineer, which was the ideology of Russian constructivists. It was really one of the first global design firms, which had offices in Chicago and Milan, and then they opened additional offices in New York, Cleveland, Detroit, as well as some in Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and England, Australia, and South Africa. Vignelli was the dominant force in the New York office in Unimark and is credited with establishing Helvetica as the distinctive typeface of the international style. If you watch the Helvetica movie, you'll see he was in that quite a bit. He used it in the branding of American Airlines, and the simple, bold colors reinforce the design while invoking the national colors of the U.S. In the movie, he does say that he was very proud that they were still using this logo, but if you look this up today, it was redesigned pretty recently. Unimark is most famous in the U.S. for the information graphics and branding it designed for the New York City Transit Authority. They were granted multiple contracts to completely redesign the system's information graphics, which was put together into a comprehensive publication called the NYCTA Graphics Standards Manual. And a lot of companies still do this today, where they'll create a brand manual to show the do's and don'ts of corporate identity and branding. They had successfully engineered a color-coded modular system that simplified the eclectic and confusing visual language of the transit system. This system really showed the visual strength of the international style as a basis for information graphics. The layout of the signage conveyed the necessary information as well as an aura of logic and efficiency. And as Unimark established its leading role in the corporate identity, other designers such as Lester Beale, Saul Bass joined the rush to create new modern logos. Lester Beale actually created this logo for the International Paper Company in 1960. It referenced the source of International Paper's products, which were trees, while also acting as a homage to Moholy-Nagy's design for the Bauhaus Press of 1923, which you can see in this symbol or icon right here. And this is the logo for the Bauhaus Press that Moholy-Nagy created in 1923. So you can really see the similarities there. Saul Bass's logo for Bell Telephone is of a similar design, in this case an abstract bell that relates to the older logo inside a perfect circle. The firm Brown, John, Chermayeff, and Geismeyer was first established in New York in 1957, soon after the two partners graduated from the graphic design program at Yale, and those two were Chermayeff and Geismeyer. Tom Geismeyer redesigned the Mobil Oil logo in a collaboration with Elliott Noyes and made a customized version of Futura. Geismeyer said the idea of the red O came about partly to reinforce a design concept to use circular canopies, circular pumps, circular display elements, etc. for a distinctive look for the gas station. Futura remains a reliable standard that is still widely used by graphic designers in the corporate realm. Lyndon Leader of Landor Associates in San Francisco designed the new FedEx logo in 1994 with a customized combination of Universe 67, which is the bold condensed, and Futura. In order to fit an arrow into the design of the logo, Leader customized his lettering with a higher X height and ligatures. So I don't know if you've all noticed that there is a logo. So this lovely figure ground in the FedEx logo arrow. The last corporate logo designed by Paul Rand before his death in 1996 was for the Enron Corporation. Simple and bold, the logo presents a successful design solution combining the company's name with a huge sans serif E that has a high visual impact. Actually, after the 2002 collapse of the company, under the weight of its fraudulent business practices, Rand's E took on a whole new meaning. It renamed the Crooked E because it became the most powerful anti-logo of its time. I believe this is the reason that Martha Stewart went to jail too, I think because of the whole Enron collapse. Don't quote me on that. The Enron debacle created much soul-searching within the graphic design community as artists pondered the critical dimensions of their power to shape people's perceptions. In the year 2000, Milton Glaser, a successful postmodern graphic designer, devised a list of hypothetical dilemmas that could arise in the career of a contemporary graphic designer. The first was designing a package to look bigger on the shelf. The second was designing an ad for a slow, boring film to make it seem like a light-hearted comedy. Third, designing a crest for a new vineyard to suggest that it had been in business for a long time. 4, designing a jacket for a book whose sexual content you find personally repellent. 5, designing a medal using steel from the World Trade Center to be sold as a profit-making souvenir of September 11th. So remember, these are all conundrums. Designing an advertising campaign for a company with a history known discrimination in minority hiring. Designing a package for children whose contents you know are low in nutrition value and high in sugar content. 8, designing a line of t-shirts for a manufacturer that employs child labor. 9, designing a promotion for a diet product that you know doesn't work. Designing an ad for a political candidate whose policies you believe would be harmful to the general public. Designing a brochure for an SUV that turned over frequently in emergency conditions and was known to have killed 150 people. Designing an ad for a product whose frequent use could result in a user's death. I personally knew a graphic design friend who refused to do any ads for cigarettes because he lost a family member from cancer. So thankfully, the advertising agency allowed him to withhold himself from those types of jobs, but I know that is not the norm. So, think about that, as a designer. Thankfully, it is a design that for me, I was never really put into the position that I had to, was told to design something for something that sort of went against my beliefs, but that is something that could potentially happen to all of us.